The icy burn of spilled champagne seeped through the silk of my white gown. I stood frozen in the center of the grand ballroom at the Art Institute of Chicago, a glittering stage turned monument to my humiliation. In front of me, my father, David Larson, gripped the microphone. "This one," he announced, his voice echoing through the speakers. Always so clumsy. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Hundreds of Chicago's most polished elites, each one happy to join in the mockery. My sister, Jessica, the family's golden child, covered her mouth to hide a smirk. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. I met my father's gaze, brushed the damp strands of hair from my face, and smiled. A small, private, cutting smile, the kind that hides a storm. They had no idea who I really was. No clue what they'd just unleashed. Have you ever been the invisible one? The screw-up in your own family? Tell me in the comments, I want to know. That smile, it had taken 2 hours to build. 2 hours earlier, I'd been gripping the steering wheel of my Audi, driving through downtown Chicago, my knuckles pale against the leather. The invitation to Jessica's engagement party had sat on my counter for a month, a silent grenade of obligation. I'd gone back and forth for days. That morning, my husband Michael had called from Zurich. He was finalizing a massive deal, something involving AI infrastructure. But as always, he'd read my tone instantly. "You don't have to go, you know," he'd said in that steady, grounding voice. "They've never treated you right, Rithi. You have nothing to prove." Michael, the quiet founder of Sterling AI, worth an estimated $25 billion. The man my family didn't even know existed, couldn't begin to imagine. We'd been married 2 years. Our life was peaceful, private, walled off from my family for his safety and my sanity. And he was right. He was always right. So why was I still driving toward the Art Institute, my stomach burning with that old, acidic dread? That's the trap of wanting acceptance. It's the poison you willingly swallow. By profession, I'm an assistant United States attorney. I stand before federal judges, prosecute corrupt officials, and take down crime syndicates. I don't flinch. I win. But with my family, I was still that 12-year-old girl waiting for a nod, a kind word, some proof that I mattered. That's how the trap works. It whispers, maybe this time will be different. It convinces you that if you just show up again, achieve one more thing, look the right way, maybe today they'll finally see you. Maybe the people who spent their lives diminishing you will finally wake up and offer the validation you've begged for. It's a lie, exhausting, relentless, but I still walked right into it. I parked the car, smoothed down my white dress, and stepped into the lion's den. Inside, the air was thick with money and lilies, a suffocating reminder of the Larsons' old money status. My mother, Linda, glided past, her eyes scanning my outfit in one swift, critical motion. "Rithi, you made it," she said. Her tone clipped. That hairstyle, practical. So doleful. She didn't wait for an answer, already moving on to charm a museum donor. Across the room, Jessica sparkled, glowing under the chandelier's gold light, soaking in praise and laughter. She was perfection, as always. It took me years and a lot of therapy to understand what that really meant. In families like ours, the roles are scripted early. Jessica was the golden child, the mirror of my father's achievements and my mother's social poise. I was the scapegoat, the vessel for their flaws, their frustrations, their shame. It wasn't casual cruelty. It was structural, necessary. They needed me to fail so she could shine. When I was 12, I'd won the state debate championship. I was bursting with pride, waiting by the door for them to come. They never did. Why? Because Jessica had a ballet recital that same night. Not a solo, just a routine performance. My trophy ended up collecting dust in my closet, while their applause for her still rang in my memory. A young usher checked the guest list. "Miss Larson? You're at table 19. Of course, table 19, tucked behind a marble pillar, right beside the catering doors. I took my seat among distant relatives and my cousin Emily, the kind one. "Rithi," she whispered, wrapping me in a real hug. "I'm so glad you came. You look amazing." "Thanks, Em. You too." An elderly aunt leaned over. "Rithi, dear, are you still in that difficult job? Public defender, isn't it? That was the story they told about me. The family's noble but struggling do-gooder. It had to be exhausting dealing with those kinds of people, and the pay could never make it worth it. You'll never meet a proper husband doing that sort of work, she added. I simply smiled. I didn't bother correcting her. I didn't tell her that I was an assistant United States attorney, or that the people I faced every day were among the most dangerous and influential criminals in the nation. And I definitely didn't tell her that 2 years earlier I had married Michael Sterling. That part of my life stayed locked away, untouched, safe. It was the one thing they couldn't judge, couldn't belittle, couldn't reach. To them, I was just Rudy, the awkward, soft-spoken public defender. And for now, that was exactly the version of me they needed to believe in. The music quieted. My father, David Larson, stepped onto the small stage and tapped the microphone. The crowd's chatter died into polite silence. Thank you all for coming, he began, his voice carrying that easy confidence of a man who'd spent decades charming clients as a real estate mogul. Tonight is a father's dream come true. My beautiful daughter, Jessica. He beamed down at my sister, who gazed up at him with pure affection, is engaged to a man who finally meets our standards, Ryan Harrison. He motioned toward Ryan, standing perfectly composed beside Jessica, the picture of a political dynasty's heir. Ryan, you're not just marrying Jessica, my father continued smoothly. You're joining a legacy of excellence. Polite applause filled the room. I took a sip of my water. I already knew my name wouldn't be mentioned. It never was. But then his eyes swept across the crowd and stopped right on me. Table 19, the spotlight of pity. And of course, he said, his tone shifting into that warm, false generosity. My other daughter, Rudy, is here tonight. She even made it all the way here on her own. The room chuckled softly. It wasn't cruel, not yet. Just the quiet, patronizing laughter reserved for the family's odd one out. My face burned, but I kept my smile perfectly steady. We're always so proud of Rudy's independence, my father went on, drawing out the word. Her dedication to that little job of hers. We only hope that one day she finds her true path. Maybe something a little less dull. And, of course, a good man to take care of her. The laughter grew louder this time, confident, unrestrained. It was a public humiliation, delivered with a grin. I felt my cousin Emily tense beside me. My father raised his glass toward Jessica and Ryan. After the toast, he stepped down from the stage, soaking in the compliments that followed him like light. He was the king of the room. He snagged a tray of champagne flutes from a passing waiter and made his way directly toward me. My pulse didn't quicken, it just went cold. I knew this move. This was the follow-up strike, the up-close insult disguised as affection. He stopped before me, his shadow cutting across the table. The laughter still danced in his eyes. But really, he said quietly, a teasing edge in his tone, you're at your sister's engagement party. The least you could do is pretend to look happy. And then it happened. He stumbled, or rather, pretended to. An exaggerated, clumsy lurch that wasn't clumsy at all. His arm jerked forward and the entire silver tray, 12 full glasses of ice-cold champagne, tipped straight onto me. A wave of freezing, sticky liquid drenched me from shoulder to waist. My white dress, the one I had chosen so carefully, turned instantly sheer, clinging to my skin. The cold shock stole my breath. The room fell utterly silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Still holding the empty tray, my father looked at me. His lapel microphone was still on. He leaned in, his booming voice echoing through every speaker. This one, he said, shaking his head with a practiced sigh. Always so clumsy. The silence shattered. Not a polite chuckle this time, but a roar of laughter. Applause, even. My mother, across the room, had her hand over her mouth, shoulders shaking with laughter. Jessica was bright red, doubled over, clutching Ryan for balance as she laughed until tears streamed down her face. I just sat there, soaked, mortified, yet perfectly, eerily calm. The grin I'd worn earlier had vanished, replaced by something quieter, a kind of still resolve. The snare had snapped shut, and I was finished being the bait. Water dripped from my hair, champagne clinging to my dress, while laughter rippled around the room like a cruel echo. The bubbly was icy, but inside I felt a strange, burning clarity. My cousin Emily rushed toward me, panic written all over her face, waving napkins that were utterly useless. "Oh my God, are you?" she started, but she never finished. Someone else reached me first. Ryan Harrison, Jessica's golden fiancé, heir to the Harrison political dynasty, was suddenly standing before me. He didn't glance at my father, who was still grinning smugly, or my sister, who was desperately trying to catch his eye. He was looking straight at me, not with sympathy, not with amusement, but with something entirely different, stunned recognition, as though he'd just seen a ghost. "Jessica, darling, just a second," he murmured, brushing her aside without so much as looking at her. Then he crouched next to my chair, ignoring the puddles spreading beneath me. My family, David, Linda, and Jessica, moved in closer, curious about what their new prize connection was doing. Ryan leaned in, his voice low and urgent, just loud enough for our small circle to hear. "My God," he breathed. You're Ratty Larson, aren't you?" I met his gaze but said nothing. His eyes widened even more. "The assistant U.S. attorney," he whispered, "the one who just prosecuted Senator Byrne." I didn't move, didn't speak. "Holy," he muttered, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. "My father's been trying for weeks to get a meeting with your boss about that case. He says you're the most feared federal prosecutor in Chicago." And then silence. A sharp, cold bubble of stillness right at the center of the glittering ballroom. My father's grin faltered. My mother's hand dropped from her mouth. Jessica just looked lost. They didn't know who Senator Byrne was or what federal prosecution really meant, but they understood one thing crystal clear: the unmistakable mix of fear and respect in Ryan Harrison's eyes. Everything had just shifted. The laughter echoing around us suddenly felt distant, hollow. And still, I hadn't uttered a single word. Ryan's phrase, "feared federal prosecutor," hung in the air like an aftershock. My eyes flicked toward the grand entrance of the ballroom. I remembered glancing at my watch right before my father began his speech. Michael's flight had landed an hour ago. He was close. Right on cue, the grand double doors opened. No theatrics, just quiet authority. Two men in perfectly tailored dark suits stepped in first. They weren't servers. Their eyes swept the room with sharp, practiced precision. Clear earpieces glinted in the light. My father, David, still reeling from Ryan's revelation, finally stirred. Spotting the new arrivals, he straightened his shoulders, ready to play the host. "Excuse me," he began, stepping forward. "This is a private." But the words died in his throat. A third man entered between the two guards. The room didn't just fall silent. It felt as if every molecule of air had been pulled away. He wasn't tall, but his presence filled every corner of the vast ballroom. A simple dark Tom Ford suit, worth more than my car, fit him perfectly, understated yet commanding. Dark hair, darker eyes, and an expression of composed authority. The elusive, near-mythical founder of Sterling AI. The man who hadn't been seen or photographed in over 3 years. The man valued at nearly $25 billion. Michael Sterling, my husband. He didn't look at my father. He didn't look at my mother, whose knuckles had gone white around the back of a chair. He didn't even glance at Jessica or her suddenly awestruck fiancé. His gaze found only me. At table 19, soaked, trembling, my white dress ruined. He started walking toward me. The crowd didn't merely move aside. They split, parting instinctively like the Red Sea. He carried a kind of confidence that didn't need noise or showmanship. It simply existed. When he reached me, his expression softened, taking in my drenched dress, the champagne drying in my hair. He said nothing at first. Instead, he slipped off his Tom Ford jacket, the one I knew he loved, the one probably worth more than this entire event, and carefully draped it over my shoulders. The warmth of his body still lingered in the fine wool. I must have been shaking, because I only stopped when he pulled me close. He leaned in, brushing a strand of wet hair from my face with his thumb. "Sorry I'm late, love," he murmured, his voice low and warm against the noise of my heartbeat. "The flight from Zurich got delayed." Then he kissed me. Not a polite kiss, a real one. The kind that says, "You're my wife and I'm here now." right there in front of my family and Chicago's elite. A single gasp seemed to rise from the entire ballroom. Somewhere, a glass shattered. I rested my head against his chest, feeling, for the first time that night, safe. He kept one arm wrapped tightly around me, holding his jacket in place. Then he turned. His eyes found my father, frozen, mouth agape like a fish. Then my mother, pale as paper. Then Jessica, her face twisted in horrified disbelief. When Michael finally spoke, his tone wasn't loud, but it sliced through the silence like a blade. Cool, steady, and final. "I'm Michael Sterling," he said, his eyes locked on my father. "Rethy's husband. We've been married for 2 years." If my AUSA title had left them stunned, the name Michael Sterling finished the job. My mother, Linda, looked like she might faint. Jessica, her perfect night shattered, was the first to find her voice. "It's not possible," she screamed, blotchy and trembling. "You're lying. You hired him. You hired all of this to ruin my night." My father, David, could barely form words. His entire story, the image he'd built for years, was collapsing in front of his peers. But you're a public lawyer," he stammered, looking from me to Michael. He's a billionaire." For the first time in my life, I looked at my father and felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a cold, quiet ending. "I was never a public lawyer," I said, my voice calm, steady, cutting through the heavy silence. "I'm an assistant United States attorney. I never lied to you. I just stopped sharing my life with people who only knew how to wound me." Michael's arm tightened around my waist, his jacket still warm on my skin. Then, in that same even, deadly calm voice, he addressed my father. "And just so we're clear, Mr. Larson," Michael said, "I watched you humiliate my wife in front of everyone. I watched you throw champagne at her. My security team caught every second on high-def video. You'll be hearing from my lawyers." That was the final blow. My father's face drained of color, the bluster gone, replaced by waxy fear. He was a real estate developer. He understood lawsuits, and he knew from the look in Michael's eyes this was no empty threat. My mother just stared at me as though seeing a stranger. Jessica stood mute now, mouth open in disbelief. "Congratulations on the engagement, Jessica," I said softly. "I'm leaving." Michael didn't release me. We turned together and walked out. His security detail stationed by the doors closed in quietly around us, a wordless shield. We left the ballroom, my family frozen amid the ruins of the story they'd spent a lifetime constructing. I didn't speak to them again that night. It took a full year of therapy, first for me, then eventually for them, before any real conversation could happen. Our relationship isn't perfect. It never will be. But for the first time, it's honest, built on painful, necessary boundaries. I've learned that family isn't always the people who share your blood. It's the ones who truly see you. Michael is my family. My cousin Emily, the teacher who handed me napkins that night, she's my family. My colleagues at the U.S. Attorney's Office, my chosen family. Sometimes, the bravest act of self-love is to stop begging for a place at someone else's table and finally build your own. Have you ever had to draw a hard boundary to protect your peace? Share your story in the comments below. Thank you for listening.